So, we need to hold elected officials or people running for office accountable for their rhetoric and make sure it's unifying rather than dividing.
Welcome. We just wanted to start off by thanking you for joining us today for Pizza and Politics. Due to the pandemic, this episode of Pizza and Politics is virtual, but we wanted to start off by asking you, what topping do you think doesn't belong on pizza?
Pineapple, actually.
I have to agree with you on that one.
So jumping right on, can you speak how your experience founding your business Topia will help to inform your decisions and views on public service?
Yeah, so about 12 years ago, I was in business school and I had worked all over the world in finance. I'd lived in Asia, in Hong Kong and Singapore and India, and it was always kind of a pain to move between different places. And I thought there should be a digital way to plan all of that and bring everything together. So when I was in business school, I started Topia, and I ran the business for 9 years as the CEO, grew it from an idea at the kitchen table to a business operating all over the world. And through that journey, I got to interact with a lot of different people, manage a big team, think about how to best support employees and build a culture that people wanted to work in. And I also got the opportunity to work with other CEOs in talking to policymakers, people in Congress, people in California, about policies for innovation for the future. And that led me to decide that I wanted to run for office.
So going off of that, when did you first get involved in politics and what inspired you to run for Congress in the 4th District?
So I've always been interested and engaged in politics. I have a family that debated politics around the dinner table. I studied history in college. And I always talked about politics a lot, volunteered a bit when I was in high school and stuff locally. But through my company was when I really got to see more of the policymaking side and start to think about policies that really impact the broader economy and a broader portion of Americans. So that was kind of what reignited my passion for politics and brought me to decide to run for office.
Okay, so as you know, over the last few years, wildfires have torn up communities across California. What do you think is the way to solve this issue or address the issue of climate change overall?
Well, you started the question with wildfires. There's a lot of different issues that go into that. Obviously, one of them is climate change, which makes the likelihood of a fire sparking much greater and then makes the fires much worse when they do start. So that is the first place to start. I'm a believer in investing in infrastructure to upgrade the way that our buildings are designed, the way that we get around the world, our energy grids, and moving toward a carbon neutral economy as quickly as we can with that as the basis. So that's kind of one side of it. We also have in California, at least, a forest management issue. So our forests are like this, strangled with each other. So, if you think about that, when a fire starts, then it spreads really, really quickly across those strangled forests. And we need to more aggressively manage our forests and clear some of the higher risk dead trees and underbrush so that we can have fuel breaks and keep the population and keep the areas where people live safe.
Yeah, so going on, what did you find to be the most rewarding experience during the months of the campaign? And how did traveling around the district and meeting with different people have an impact on you?
Well, interestingly, the most rewarding part was actually meeting people, looking people in the eye, hearing their stories, hearing what the government could do to improve their life, help their family, things that they were worried about. I loved that part of it, connecting with people of all different ages, all different geographic locations throughout the district, all different industries. And that was really the most rewarding part. Unfortunately, when the pandemic hit, we stopped doing that. So I kind of got cheated. I only got to do that for sort of half of the campaign. We did a lot on Zoom and a lot on the phone, obviously, but it's not quite the same thing as looking at in people's eyes and shaking their hands and really forging that personal connection. So I'm really grateful that I was able to do that for half of the campaign. And then, we did the best we could virtually going through the pandemic.
Awesome. So, as you know, there's a partisan divide in our country today. What steps in the future would you take to actively connect with people of different political ideologies across California's 4th District?
So I tried very hard to build a campaign that was bipartisan in its tone and focused on representing the majority of voices, regardless of what political party they come from. And I'm very proud that we did do that. We had a large amount of donors across parties, a lot of endorsements, a lot of voters, not enough, obviously, but I think we really did show that you can build an exciting campaign that brings people together instead of divides them on party lines. And I think it starts with rhetoric. It starts with having a message that is inclusive rather than divisive. I don't believe in putting on performances on Twitter. I don't believe in fighting with people publicly. I don't believe in language that fosters division from either side. And I think that's where this needs to start. Obviously, on top of that, we have a huge disinformation problem. False information spreads 6 times faster than true information through social media. So, we need to hold elected officials or people running for office accountable for their rhetoric and make sure it's unifying rather than dividing. And then I think, the third thing is focusing on common issues that impact people's lives. I constantly heard from people, a lot of politicians talk about all these things that don't affect me. I'm just trying to wake up every day, ensure my kids get a good education, be able to pay for their college, be able to take a vacation this year, buy a home. And the wealth divide that we have in our country today has caused a lot of people to feel like they're not a part of the modern economy and they're not benefiting from it and their family isn't. So I think from a policy perspective, where we need to start is extending more economic opportunity, good jobs, opportunities to access the innovation economy, improving infrastructure to parts of California that are not San Francisco or LA or San Diego.
So going on, in your opinion, what do you think are currently the 2 biggest issues facing the people of the 4th District, and what steps you recommend we would take to solve these issues?
Well, I think for the people of my district in California's 4th District, but also all over the country, it's the issue that I just touched on is extending economic opportunity, good jobs, the ability to start a company or drive on a good road or connect to broadband to everyone. Right now, it's hugely unequal in our country. Really basic things like access to a good education, connecting to the internet, having safe drinking water and the lights that can stay on and a road that you can drive on and a good job. Those things are not things that everyone enjoys, particularly people in rural areas or in parts of our country that are not kind of the major urban centers. And I think that's the biggest issue right now is how do we create an American economy that everyone can participate in, that anyone who wants to work hard can do well and can have a good paying job. And everyone's not going to be equal. That's just not how the world works. But equality of opportunity and access and that basic foundation is the promise of our country, and we should be able to live up to it as the richest country in the world.
So currently Gen Z has the lowest turnouts of any group. Why do you think students should take their time out of their day to actively learn and engage with the government in the political process?
It's interesting to me, and it's always super surprising that is the case. I remember when I first got to vote, I was so excited. My parents always brought me to vote with them, and I was so excited to be 18 and old enough to vote. I think, I've lived in places where people can't vote. I've done business in places where people would literally give their left arm to live in a democracy. And I think we sometimes take that for granted. So I would just encourage people to think about the privilege that it is to be born in America, the privilege that it is, and the precious nature of a democracy like we have, and how many other people would give up so much to have a voice in their government. And then also to think about the ways that the decisions that your representatives make impact your life. I know it can feel very far away. It can feel like it's controlled by money or special interests or things that are maybe not necessarily directly relatable to Gen Z or to a student. But the reality is that the decisions that the government makes, everything from the road that you drive to school on, to the curriculum that you have in school, to the planet that you're going to be able to live on and your kids are going to be able to live in, to the division that we all face today and the hate that's been brought up in society, all of those things come from decisions of politicians, and they only change when there's voice and there's a dialogue that is happening.